The Parra Cave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leisure Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Parra Cave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
Welcome to another episode of the Parra Cave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Parra Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Parra Cave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and the NRL draw for 2025 dropped last Thursday morning, Sydney time, 11 a.m, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And look, I apologise for not getting a podcast out earlier about this subject, but I did have a lot of things on last week, and unfortunately I just didn't get around to it. I wanted to investigate it and go in depth with it a little bit, so I only have just found the time. Look, as I said, I really apologise for that and the lack of content last week as well. I did say that I was going to have the Chris Johns interview out last week. I will have that out this week, I promise you that, so stay tuned for that one later on the week. Part one will be out on Wednesday and part 2 will be out on Friday. But this is about the NRL draw, and this is about the Parramatta NRL draw. Now, I've gone through it, and look, first initial look at it, when I looked at it on Thursday, I thought, yep, that doesn't look too bad. I'm pretty sort of happy with that draw. And look, going in depth with it, and seeing a few different key little things there, I actually am pretty happy with this draw. I think it looks pretty good in terms of who we play, when we play, the turnarounds, who we play twice, and yeah, so I'm pretty happy with this draw, to be honest. And look, it all kicks off on Sunday the 9th of March for Parramatta, down there at Amy Park against the Melbourne Storm. So for round 1, a interstate trip straight away. So that'll be a tough clash, that is for sure. 50% win record down there at 33% I should say, win record down there in Melbourne. So a very tough one down there to win. I think most notably the last greatest victory down there was 2022. In that Golden Point game where Ray Stone scored that try. How good was that one? But they kick off against the Storm. Now, we did play the Melbourne Storm, I think it was again 2023, round number 1. Now, can we beat the Melbourne Storm in round 1? They have an impeccable record, something like a 21-year record of first round wins under Craig Bellamy. He's never lost a round 1 game, so it's all against Parramatta in round 1 from the start, so that's not too good. But then 2 home games in a row against the Tigers and Bulldogs. So the Tigers, they will be much improved with the addition of Jerome Luai, obviously, and also looking to get off the bottom of the table. And then against the much improved Bulldogs, who made the finals last year as well. So, look, that'll be the first game that Josh Addo-Carr, the new Parramatta Eels signing, will play, and that will be against his old club who sacked him, the Bulldogs. So that will be an interesting game. And look, the first 4 weeks of the competition for Parramatta are played on Sundays, so 4:05 p.m. the first 4 rounds of the competition. So I like that even spread. That is a pretty good thing, I would say. It is a nice even spread. It's a little bit like the Broncos of old, playing on a Friday night, isn't it? But Parramatta's first 4 games on a Sunday, so nice even 7-day turnarounds throughout the first 4 weeks. The 4th game is against the Manly Sea Eagles at Four Pines Park, another tough venue that Parramatta don't have a particularly good record at, only winning 27% of their games there. And then back at home for 2 games, well, sort of home for 2 games. One against the Dragons in round 5, which is multicultural round, and that one is on a Saturday at 3 p.m, the 5th of April. Now, that one's obviously going to be a massively interesting game, that one, with former Parramatta Eels captain Clint Gutherson now moving to the Dragons, and Zach Lomax, former Dragons player, moving to the Parramatta Eels. So that will be a great game, and one that will be obviously a majorly contested game, and also one that will be, I guess, well, I won't say full house, but I reckon the crowd will be right up there. That is on Saturday, the 5th of April at 3 p.m, so our first Saturday game. And then our second home game there, round 6, is actually in Darwin. So that is the last Darwin game. The last year of the agreement is this year that the Parramatta Eels have had with the Northern Territory government. So round 6 is against the Raiders up in Darwin, and that is on Saturday the 12th of April, 7:35 p.m. And then a return bout against the Tigers. So we play the Tigers twice in 5 weeks there, and that is the traditional Easter Monday game. Now, it is an away game for Parramatta. It is the Tigers' home game this year at CommBank Stadium for that Easter Monday game. Easter Monday on the 21st of April, that game being played at 4 p.m. Now, then Parramatta have a bye in round 8, which is Anzac round. And look, I guess that is a little bit disappointing that the Eels have a bye in Anzac round, but I guess you have to give somebody a bye in that round. There were, I think, plans for an Anzac jersey, like every club during the season, to produce one. I don't know if that will still go ahead. Potentially, they could play in a Anzac jersey, maybe in another round. I'm not too sure, but then it just wouldn't have the same meaning, I don't think. So I don't know what the club will do in that circumstance there. So after the Tigers game at CommBank Stadium, obviously the bye, it is a 11-day turnaround from playing in Magic Round, which is round number 9. This time it is against the Sharks. It is the first game of Magic Round in the NRL. That is, obviously, with the Women's Origin game being played on the Thursday night, but this is the first of the NRL games. Friday, the 2nd of May, 6 p.m. That is Magic Round. And then back at home at CommBank Stadium, and the first time that the Dolphins have played at CommBank Stadium against Parramatta. They did play against, I think, the Tigers last year or the year before, and that is actually Women in League round. So that will be a great round to celebrate, and that is the first of the Thursday games that Parramatta will play. Only 2 Thursday night games for Parramatta next season in 2025, and that is the first one. The second one is a little bit later on against the Melbourne Storm. The game round 11 is against the Newcastle Knights, and look, for me, this is a bit of an odd time for this sort of clash, particularly when it's up in Newcastle. It is the 6 p.m. game on Friday, the 16th of May. Now, usually this game is usually played on a Saturday night at 7:35. Look, this one's an odd one for myself, as one who loves to get to away games, and especially this one, as I have friends who live up that way, and we catch up, as we don't get to see each other much these days in person because of the distance factor, but we make a plan of catching up together for this game, so we will try and organise something there for sure anyway. But for many others that probably won't be able to get, Parramatta fans anyway, that will probably won't be able to get to that game, and it's a little bit awkward there, that Friday night 6 p.m. game in Newcastle. The 6 p.m. game in Magic Round against the Sharks, look, that's not probably such a bad thing. I guess we play that game, and then it is the best time to play that game, I think, because you are technically the second game, but the first game of the NRL round there. But usually we have been playing on a Sunday up at Magic Round, and the field generally does to get a little bit torn up, teared up, churned up, I guess you could say, and probably increases the risk of injuries at that stage of the round. Look, it is a massive effort to have 8 games on the one field across a weekend. The ground staff there, they do a magnificent job, but I guess playing first, then that just really lessens that chance of injury, I guess, from the field, because of the field. Look, any game, there is always a chance of injury, but especially one round that is played at one field over a weekend, it's definitely, I guess, an advantage to be playing first on that surface. So that 6 p.m. game is probably not so much as bad as the one against Newcastle in round 11. Round 12 is State of Origin week, and that game is at CommBank Stadium against Manly. And look, I think that game is against Manly at CommBank Friday 23rd of May, 8 p.m, and that will be during Origin week. So State of Origin will be on the Wednesday, I think it is. Let me just double check that one. So yes, that will be a State of Origin affected game, and as the Origin number 1 is on the 28th of May at Suncorp Stadium, game number one. So a few players out of both sides may be out of this clash. The likes of, as we saw this year, potentially Mitchell Moses and Zach Lomax for Parramatta, and for Manly, Daly Cherry Evans, maybe Jake Trbojevic as well, the New South Wales captain. He was this year. I'm not too sure if he will be next year. Tom Trbojevic, he may play for New South Wales as well. So there will be a few players out of that game for both teams. A 9-day turnaround to round number 13, and that is against the Penrith Panthers. That is an away game, with the Panthers playing their home games for the next 2 seasons at CommBank Stadium. So that will be after Origin. So I think this year in 2024, most of the Origin players for the Panthers did back up and play. I'm not too sure if they did that after the third Origin, but I think it is probably a good thing that we do play the Panthers after an Origin game. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens in that Origin game, I guess. I guess the old adage is, injuries may happen in that game, which we don't want to see. We want to see the best players playing each and every game. But that one, we'll just have to wait and see. But that one against the Panthers is after an Origin game. As I said, Parramatta might have players involved in that game as well, and definitely the Panthers will as well have players involved in that game. But there's a 9-day break between round number 12 and 13, and then going into round number 14 is the King's birthday game against the Bulldogs. So the second time that Parramatta play the Bulldogs, that's the second time that Parramatta play the Bulldogs. That is the traditional King's birthday game on the Monday. That is at Accor Stadium, and that is another 8-day turnaround from round number 13, and then from round number 14 against the Bulldogs at Accor Stadium on that King's birthday weekend, there is a bye week for Parramatta. That will be a State of Origin affected game as well as the second game of Origin at Optus Stadium in Perth is the 18th of June. So our Parramatta's next game after that bye and after Origin will be at home at CommBank Stadium against the Gold Coast Titans. So there will be a 13-day turnaround from the last game in round number 14 to when they play the Gold Coast Titans. So a pretty good break there. And that game is played at 6:15 p.m. on the Sunday, so the later Sunday game. The next game, round 17, is the Beanies for Brain Cancer round, and that is a magnificent round put on by the NRL in conjunction with the Mark Hughes Foundation, obviously selling beanies throughout that weekend, raising money for the Mark Hughes Foundation for brain cancer awareness and research. So a magnificent weekend of rugby league and support for the Mark Hughes Foundation, and great to see everyone wearing their beanies that weekend. And look, it could be really handy for Parramatta fans like myself to get a beanie, not only to raise money for the Mark Hughes Foundation, but the game against the Dragons is down at Wollongong at Wing Stadium on Saturday at 5:30 p.m. So the ground right next to the beach could be a little bit chilly, so the Beanies for Brain Cancer beanies might come in really handy that weekend. And then straight after that one, round number 18 is Parramatta's third and last bye. Now, that is a pretty... Round 15 and round 18, two byes relatively close together. And then a little bit of a hard period for the Parramatta Eels, I think, anyway, as there is 4 games in 19 days after that bye week. So Parramatta play Penrith in round number 19. That is Parramatta's home game. That is on Sunday, the Battle of the West, 4:05 p.m. And then it is an away game to Canberra, Saturday 19th of July at 3 p.m. That's probably a good thing in Canberra, a 3 p.m. game. It won't be chilly at 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, but 3 p.m. that should be a good time for that game. But then a travel to Brisbane, and now Parramatta only play twice up in Brisbane, one in Magic Round and one against Brisbane, so a little bit disappointing for the Parramatta Eels Queensland-based fans, as they don't play the Cowboys or Titans or Dolphins up in Queensland. And then it is a home game on the Thursday, 31st of July, 7:50 p.m. That is the second of the Thursday games, and that is against the Melbourne Storm. So, a tough period there for the Parramatta Eels. 4 games in 19 days. After that Storm game, that Thursday night game, there is a 10-day break, 10-day turnaround for the home game against the Cowboys. That is Indigenous round. There are 2 Indigenous rounds back-to-back in the NRL next season, rounds 23 and 24. And that is... the second one of that is the away game against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and that one is being played at Allianz Stadium Saturday, the 16th of August, 7:35 p.m. Back home again, the country round, Telstra Footy Country Round, is a home game for the Eels against the Roosters, and that is Saturday, the 23rd of August, 7:35 p.m. And then a international trip, the one and only international trip that the Eels will make, and that will be against the New Zealand Warriors in round number 26 on Friday, the 29th of August at 6 p.m. Australian time. And the last game of the round 27, it is a 9-day turnaround from playing in New Zealand to playing the last home game of the year, which is against the Newcastle Knights, and it is actually the last game of the regular competition. So we all know in recent seasons gone past, I think it is, we have seen that the last game of the competition can often determine a top 8 spot. So hopefully, from my sake and many other Parramatta Eels fans' sakes, the Parramatta have made the top 8 well and truly before this last game, but we have seen in previous years where it can determine a top 8 spot. So the last game of the regular season will be Sunday, the 7th of September, 4:05 p.m, and that game is against the Newcastle Knights. So, to give a quick sort of recap about that, the teams that Parramatta played twice, there are 8 of them. The Storm, Tigers, Bulldogs, Sea Eagles, Dragons, Knights, Panthers and Raiders. So you would like to think that obviously the Panthers, they are rivals. The Bulldogs as well are rivals. The Tigers, we have that traditional Easter Monday game. I guess you could say rivals as well. The Sea Eagles, definitely Parramatta rivals. The Dragons now, they may become rivals, especially with Clint Gutherson playing there maybe. And the Storm as well are rivals as well of the Parramatta Eels. So those teams we play twice. The days played throughout the season. Thursday we play those 2 games, so that is a good thing. I think we played a lot of Thursday games this season. Friday we play 5 games, Saturday 6. Majority of the games for the Parramatta Eels will be played on a Sunday, and most of them at 4:05 p.m. So, look, that can be a great thing. Hopefully the sun's shining and we can see some fast football being played. But 4:05 p.m. on a Sunday seems to be, I guess you could say, a Sunday fun day, a family day as well. So hopefully we get to see a lot of good crowds at CommBank Stadium throughout the year. And obviously the 2 Monday games as well, the Easter Monday game and the King's birthday game. Key rounds, well, obviously the first round is obviously a key round. You want to get your season off to a great start, so you want to beat the Melbourne Storm in Parramatta's case. The first home game against the Tigers in round 2. As I mentioned before, round number 5, the multicultural round versus the Dragons, Gutho and Lomax playing against their former clubs. Round 6 up in Darwin, That is the game against the Raiders, the last year of the Northern Territory Agreement. Round 7, the traditional Easter Monday game. The Tigers have actually gotten it over the Eels the last couple of years, I think, in that one. So the Parramatta Eels will be determined to get that Easter Monday game victory again. Round 9, Magic Round against the Sharks. And round 13, the Battle of the West against the Panthers at CommBank Stadium. Now, that is the first time that we play them. That will be the away game, but the round number 19 is the home game for the Parramatta Eels against the Panthers. So, which games am I looking forward to personally? Well, I'm looking forward to all of them, obviously. I cannot wait for the season to start. It is under 100 days now, so it will fly by. Christmas is coming, so once it hits Christmas, it's New Year's. Once it hits New Year's, it's, I guess you could say, tennis season. And then when the Australian Open is finished, well, then it's close to February, and then trials start. The pre-season challenge in the rugby league starts. Once that starts, it's all getting very closer. But the key games that I'm looking forward to, I'm looking forward to every single game, obviously. Cannot wait. It's a little bit boring at the moment without no rugby league on, but I'm getting by. Round number 3 against the Bulldogs, Josh Addo-Carr against his old club. Now, he has to get, obviously, the All-Stars game taken off his suspension. He has played, he has had one game of his suspension pass with the Bulldogs. He will apply for the All-Stars game as well, because no doubt he will get picked for that for the Indigenous side, so that will count towards his suspension. And then rounds 1 and 2 in the NRL. So round 3 against the Bulldogs, can't wait for that one. Round 5 against the Dragons, Easter Monday game. Magic Round, I will be up at Magic Round as well, so cannot wait for that one. I love getting up to Queensland for the Magic Round, and also catching up with the Queensland friends and fans. Round number 12 against Manly, that will be even though it is Origin affected, I think being against Manly, you'd want to beat them, so that one will be a great one. Round number 19, the Battle of the West against the Panthers. Round 21 against the Broncos at Suncorp. As I said, I love getting up to Queensland and catching up with you guys, the fans, and also friends as well. And I will look forward to the last game against the Knights as well. So, look, and also just another quick little thing as well. The distance travelled based on the 2025 fixture for the Parramatta Eels will be 15,919 kilometres. It is the 13th highest in the NRL. So I guess that is a good thing as well. The less travel you have to do throughout a season, obviously the better, I think. But as I mentioned before, it's a little bit disappointing that the Queensland Eels fans don't get to see their side a lot. Only the 2 times live in Queensland, playing the Broncos late in the season, and also the Magic Round as well against the Sharks. Obviously, the Warriors are the number 1 there with 75,000 kilometres. So, 60,000 more kilometres, but obviously they're going to Las Vegas as well for round 1. So that's where a lot of their tally goes up. One club that isn't going to Las Vegas this season is the North Queensland Cowboys, and they're travelling something like 40,000 kilometres. So, travel for games is obviously an important part of a season, and to only have nearly 16,000 kilometres in travel, I guess that is a good thing as well. So, look, I am pretty happy with this draw. I think it will be a better season for Parramatta. Look, I think they will make the top 8. That is a massively early prediction. But I think it is a pretty good start right up until their first bye. So playing the Tigers twice. Not saying that any of these teams are easy beats, but I think Parramatta can possibly have, I'm going to say, 4 wins out of out of 7. There we go. I'm going to say 4 wins out of 7 for that first start of the season. Look, I'd love for them to go 7 out of 7 for the first week, but I guess that game in Melbourne against the Storm in round 1 is going to be a hard one to do. Get a victory, break that hoodoo, but hey, records are meant to be broken, so it'll be the master against apprentice with Craig Bellamy up against Jason Riles, the new Parramatta Eels coach. That'll be an interesting one there. So yeah, look, if you can win your home games, and it's really crucial in this competition to win your home games. So out of that, the Parramatta's got 4 home games, albeit one of those in Darwin. So if they can win those, and technically they got 5 because the round 7 Easter Monday game is at CommBank Stadium anyway, even though they are the away side. So technically 5 games at CommBank Stadium. So if they can get those ones won, that is a very good start going into the bye and then going into Magic Round. So look, I'm pretty happy with that draw. I cannot wait for the season to start. And let me know your thoughts about this Parramatta Eels draw. Also, to stay tuned to or look forward to being a part of the Talking Parra podcast about this draw as well, getting the other lads' thoughts on the Parramatta Eels draw. So tune in for that one. That one will be 8:15 p.m. live on Facebook. So tune in for that one. Give them a follow as well if you already are not following them. I don't know why you wouldn't be, because they are a great group of blokes and love talking para, as in the name of the podcast. So I will be hopefully a part of that one as well, the Draw podcast. So tune into that one as well, where you'll hear my thoughts after you've already heard them here, plus also the other lads' thoughts as well. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. As I said before, I apologise for the lack of content last week. I will definitely be getting out the Chris Johns interview this week, so stay tuned for that one on all the social media, and also any other Parramatta related news that comes out during the week as well. Stay tuned to the social media pages, and if it is worth doing a podcast about, I will be doing one about that one. Thank you very much, and look, as a Parramatta fan, the Parra Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans, go Parra! How you going, mate? Are you a Parra Cave podcast listener?
I am, bro. It's a great podcast. Everyone tune in.
Go Parra!
Hello, Parra Cave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Parra Cave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Parra Cave Podcast. See you next time.